So thank you very much for having me come speak today at the Mobile Payments Conference. We're really excited to be here. This is Intel's first time sponsoring the conference and really working with the ecosystem on sharing what we're doing. So with that, I'm going to move on. And just start with a little bit of the journey that we're on. Obviously, you're fellow travelers in the industry, so I'm not going to spend too much time on background. But when I think about this, it's like we've been on a multi-decade journey to reinvent the point of sale. And it started with the self-check era 10 years ago, where people were saying there's got to be a better way than the standard wait in line forever and have some clerk ring me up. What we saw 5 to 4 years ago was the advent of mobile, taking these devices to more like a tablet type of device and use that to do self-check and/or checking with the sales associate. And what we're seeing now is it's kind of hitting its stride, but I think we're still in really early days if you think about it. Intel's projecting mobile point-of-sale growth in the retail really hitting extraordinary levels in the next few years, as we see more and more companies are actually moving out of what they're considering the pilot stage and into their production deployments. We're seeing that there are many organizations, again, while they move on, are starting to also realize that this is not a linear, easy step and repeat kind of process. Because to unlock the value of using mobile point of sale, you really have to redesign your business process. It isn't just taking what worked at a fixed point of sale system and replicating it on a tablet. And so let's, for a minute, just consider some challenges that these folks are facing as they go to adopt these technologies. First of all, how do you identify and deploy the right mobile solution given the variety of things out there in the ecosystem? How do you narrow down some of those choices? That's kind of challenge number one. The second challenge is where and when do you deploy this mobile option? How does that, again, start redesigning or triggering some new use cases that you want to light up for your business? The third thing is making sure that you match the optimal capabilities of what's out there in the ecosystem. Again, there's lots of capabilities today, but how do you match those features and form factors to the use cases that you want to, again, engage? The fourth challenge we're seeing is cutting through the hype and really find those reputable suppliers that are going to be the true solutions providers for you, not hopefully someone who's in it one day and out the next. And last but not least, all the while, you've got to stay on your budget, right? We know retailers are very much strapped for their margins, and we really need to think about how are they going to do this without disrupting their daily operations or their revenue stream. So it seems real simple, huh? Piece of cake. Especially when you usually have an environment where the CMO, the CTO, and the COO have different agendas and different visions of what technology adoption looks like. Well, at Intel, what we're trying to do is try to cut through that chaos and help be a technology provider to the retail industry. The vision for our division, we're the Retail Solutions Division at Intel, is to bring about the perfect personalized shopping experience. That may not mean the same thing for every person. It also may not mean the same thing every time I go shopping. It depends on my journey, whether I'm going for weekly groceries or a dress for a special event. My agenda is going to be different. And so as we look at this, we say, what kind of technology experiences can help with that shopping experience, whether it be a mixture of online, in-store, consulting with friends, using social media. You can't believe the types of things that are happening in today's non-linear shopping process. The good news is at Intel we have lots of assets to bring to bear to the situation. We have everything from as low down as what was announced as the Curie chips at our developer forum a few weeks ago, all the way up to high-powered Xeon servers. So we're not really worried about the technology being available. It's again more on the, can we get the clarity on the use case and the value we're going to drive, and then we'll match the technology to that. And in my role at Intel as leader of the mobility and payment security team, what we're doing is really getting the opportunity to hear from customers in the ecosystem what's keeping them up at night, what are the challenges they're facing, and how can we use our technology to break through that. What we consider as retail is actually a mix of retail segments, hospitality, as well as retail banking, because we again see a lot of those challenges being common. And so we're starting to document those lessons learned along the way. Again, Intel's been shipping into this market for over 2 years, and we're starting to see kind of some similarities between what we're arriving at with the retailers. And so I'll share a little bit of what we've learned so far. we're starting to see kind of a three-phase process translate in the adoption curve. We're seeing retailers usually start with something like the store manager dashboard, where they take the device that's used for productivity for their store managers, getting them from out behind the scenes or in an office somewhere and getting them out on the floor, engaging with the sales associates and the customers. They get to see the heartbeat of the retail operation, yet they have in their hands and their fingertips all the scheduling tools for who gets the next break, a running tally of how the POS tills are coming through, and any other applications they find of use. Added incredible value. So then our store managers have become advocates within the organization for the next wave of POS rollout, which is empowering the sales associates. You know, what's good for the manager? Wow, what if I actually put the power of information in the hands of my sales associates? No longer do you have the uneducated sales associate who doesn't know what the difference is between camera A and camera B. They can actually tell you in the specs, this one has this gigabit of memory, this one has this much pixels, and they can be as equally informed as the smart shopper who today is shopping with a smartphone device in their hand, right? And as we saw new use cases emerge where the sales associate could now check, again, right there on the floor from where they're standing in a conversation with a customer, not only the in-store inventory, but the online inventory. Because again, we know that today these are sadly still two silos. And so we really start to bring about that omni-channel experience by using these mobile devices. We also start to see them using the mobility in sales associate hands for queue busting. So again, starting to break through the line, starting to take orders, getting more into the kitchen so that the kitchen can start prioritizing orders as they go through. And last but not least, simple things like price checking, you know, where they don't have to go run with the consumer 20, 50 feet over to go look it up. So that was all great. That was wave 2. What we're now seeing is wave 3 come into effect, which is why don't we just add the payment capability? Seems kind of silly to have a great conversation with the consumer and then interject a little bit of risk into that situation by telling them to go walk 100 feet over and start waiting in line. Why don't you just finalize the sale and transaction there? Works good with some transactions, not with all transactions, but certainly we're seeing that option wanting to be that they need to support transactions. And of course that introduces a whole lot of complexity, right? Because today's traditional fixed point of sale is really a 2-device solution. It's a pin pad solution and it's a point of sale solution. When we go mobile, that all becomes one. And so what we've really looked at is in the stage 3, it's starting to see a bifurcation of what different subsegments of retail require. And they tend to center around 3 key themes. First of all, the right size. Second of all, what's scalable? And thirdly, how can I get low cost / durability? So I'm going to briefly touch on those. First of all, as you see, we've outlined a few of the different subsegments of retail and what we're seeing from size requirements from these. And the key takeaway here is there is no one size fits all. And what Intel loves about this is we can enable a lot of innovation and creativity to happen through the ecosystem by enabling a whole host of companies to work on bringing mobile POS solutions to market. What may work great in restaurant, like an 11-inch tablet so you can actually see the wine list, works great, but that's not going to fit in a pocket. And in some use cases like grocery, they want to be able to put the device away into a pocket so that they don't have to have their hands occupied with the tablet. So as we continue to move on, this is another example in the simplicity case of what retailers are looking for. We did a survey and basically 74% of retailers said, when I go mobile, I don't want to lose access to the data and the information and the systems I have for all my back office, for my management of inventory, for my tying into my ERPs, and even my customer relationship management software. So that compatibility is critical. So at Intel, we've offered 2 different operating systems, both Windows and Android, in our solutions so that we can, again, enable that flexibility based on what the retailer needs. Device management is pretty important. We want to be able to push updates down the wire, be able to give the devices the latest patches or updates or upgrades without having to hand manage these with IT. And last but not least, asset tracking is important because, again, when you make these devices mobile, they sometimes disappear. And so we want to be able to brick them, you know, make them unusable from afar if we have to, or be able to, again, track them down to a location based on their signal of where to go find this device. So that's kind of around the simplicity front. The third thing was really, what do retailers want? And what we hear is It's, again, something that needs to be designed for a business use case. The great thing early on was a lot of innovation was happening around consumer-based devices, but the challenge is they're not made to be dropped multiple times a day by potentially hourly workers who don't really give a care about the equipment that they're using. And so we made ours, work with an ecosystem to make them a little bit more rugged, but hopefully not the 3-inch, thick bricks that, you'd see on a construction site. Retailers do want something a little bit more sleek and elegant, possibly even dockable and undockable throughout the day so that you can make sure that it's locked when you go on break. So now that we're getting into the third wave of innovation here, we're looking at payment devices having as table stakes magstripe, EMV, NFC. No retailer wants to be constrained on the type of payment they can take. So with that, we've started to think about how do we innovate and push our ecosystem even further? How do we up the game on what's being offered? And up until now, all the innovations we've seen have been really in the 7-inch screen size to 11 inches, and from an Intel standpoint, that means something from our Atom processor line to our Core processor line. But I'm excited to say we've actually broken through that barrier now, and we have some new innovations happening. So I'd like to welcome up Eric Vloot, who's Vice President of Global Product Strategy for Verifone. And we announced today a new solution, and Eric's going to chat with me a bit about what that's all about. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Nobody expected that change in format.
Yeah.
Surprised that
We're switching it up.
What are you doing?
We're being crazy. Okay, so the first question I have for you, Eric, is if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about what was the news today and what exactly was being offered.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle, and thank you for inviting me up here, by the way. So we just announced today in partnership with Intel and Ava Mobile, who's also here in the room, that we are announcing a pocketable mobile POS solution. So what this is here in my hand, and it's publicly posted on our website. If you want to check it out, what it is it takes the Ava mobile device, so a handheld, pocketable device, ruggedized, supports both Windows and Android, as Michelle was saying, and pairs it with the Verifone E355, which we announced earlier in the year. So this is a completely integrated mobile payments device that supports everything Michelle was just talking about: EMV, debit, credit, magstripe, NFC, as well as a barcode reader for scanning barcodes in the store. So it's actually a very compact, rugged, and highly capable device. So we're really excited to be able to announce that here, or earlier today, I should say, and show this here today.
So the other question I have for you is how did we get started on this journey? What for Verifone kind of made you think about how to go about this solution?
Yeah, good question. So we have a very partner-inclusive story, or a partner-inclusive strategy, I should say. If you're familiar with Verifone and the way we've done our payment solutions in the past, we tend to partner up to get the best of breed and a really good combination of solution for our clients. This is a great example of it. So when we announced the 355, it was always meant to be a modular solution and be combined with other devices, whether that's a tablet or a handheld device like this. So then if you start looking at the potential partners available, clearly there is no better ingredient provider than Intel right here, as you can imagine. And then Ava, of course, is one of the leading mobile ODMs in Europe. So they got this fantastic device. So for us, it made a lot of sense to kind of come into this partnership and bring this product to market.
So again, we said earlier, the device is one thing, but enabling the experience and the value, kind of unlocking that value, is really critical to actually having this sell and be a great solution. What do you see as the value drivers for a platform like this?
Yeah, I think MPOS in general, right? I mean, there's a lot of value for merchants, retailers to go MPOS. And I was actually just reminded when you were talking about the self-checkout experience, right? That self-checkout came to, in particular, the US, I don't know, 15 years ago or so, maybe a little longer ago. And that was supposed to be innovation in the consumer experience. But if you think about it, it really didn't change anything about the consumer experience. It just sped things up a little bit, right? The consumer still had to go stand in a line, deal with whatever the frustrations were that they would have. The only difference was now they got to do the work themselves as opposed to somebody else doing it. It's very, very exciting, right? So that's not really innovation. That's just a process optimization. MPOS, on the other hand, changes that, right? It allows a merchant, a retailer, all the folks you talked about earlier, to go into the store and really interact with the consumers and give them a very different experience. Take away some of the friction that exists in our sometimes frustrating shopping experiences that includes waiting in line and things like that. So when you're interacting with a store associate on a particular item and you're getting information from that person, why then not complete the transaction with them as well? So that sort of speaks to the MPOS and how it changes the consumer experience. Specifically on this device, obviously, and you said it yourself, a lot of retailers want to do these integrations with the systems, the back-end systems, and the infrastructure they already have, Windows, Android, right, however that fits in. Doing that in a way that isn't going to break every day, so doing that in a rugged device obviously makes a lot of sense. So lots of value for merchants to look at a device like this. And did I mention it's pocketable?
Yeah. Okay. One last question is, thinking about the device, how does this demonstrate both mobility and security? What are some of the features that Verifone brings to the table in the security space?
Okay, so mobility and security do go hand in hand, luckily. Because of the way we've designed these products, right? So when merchants go mobile, they have to think about some things they haven't thought before. For example, they are now, by definition, transferring payment data, consumer payment data, over a wireless link, and it doesn't matter if that's Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or even cellular in some cases. Number two, they're now passing payment data through another operating system that Verifone in that case does not control, right? So you're passing, potentially, put it simply, credit card data through Android or through a Windows operating system. So what we've done from day one, and we've been very consistent with our entire MPOS line from day one, is we encrypt all cardholder data at the point that it enters our system. So the data is encrypted and it doesn't get decrypted until further upstream. So anytime that payment data transfers through the operating system, like the Android system or the other Windows system, anytime that payment data transfers over any wireless link is encrypted. So anything that may be going on in between that point of entry and the time that the payment gets processed is encrypted, so the retailer doesn't have to worry about that. The net result is that you actually get a more secure transaction in some cases than you might have on a fixed amount transaction.
Excellent. So one more question. Where do you see this going? So today, obviously one announcement. Where do you see Verifone going to continue to try to advance the mobility solutions out there in the industry?
Yeah, so we're very committed to MPOS. There's clearly you showed some numbers which were great. Clearly a movement for merchants, retailers to go down the mobile path. It does give all these advantages we talked about, including a much better consumer experience. So we will continue to invest in that space. We will continue to work with partners to bring products to market in different form factors, because you're absolutely right. There is a need for a larger tablet version of what I just put in my pocket. There is a need for a very pocketable solution. So Verifone, who every day we wake up, we think about security, of course. So Verifone is committed to bring to market a wide range, with our partners, a wide range of mobile POS solutions to really help our clients do better with their consumers in turn.
Excellent. So I'm going to have Eric stay here. I only have one slide left, and then we're going to do Q&A. So that way you're already here.
Okay.
But to wrap it up. Okay. I don't trip. Okay, so I'm back to this mic. What we talked about today was, again, the journey that we're on, and I hope what you get a feeling of is we're just at the very beginning. Certainly just a few years into what, say, 5 or 10 years from now, where payment may be ubiquitous to the landscape. Tablets and mobility is the form factor of today, but who knows where this could go. Let's talk about, we heard earlier, innovations in vending, innovations in payment in your car, innovations in payments in wearables. I've seen one interesting concept out of the Ukraine, which is the entire tabletop at the restaurant is a monitor, and you're tapping and paying the table. So we just look at this and say, with the Internet of Things is kind of what we coined this term at Intel. It's used in the industry to talk about connecting what used to be very dumb devices, adding value and creating new business models out of that. And one of the things I heavily advocate for within the walls of Intel is, and payment is going to be instrumental to part of creating that business value and commerce. And so Intel is forming new relationships, new partnerships with great companies like Verifone, because we don't think we can do it all ourselves. We need to, again, encourage the industry to make this innovation happen. So I look forward to hopefully maybe 2, 5, 10 years down the road coming back and saying, look how easy that was, right? We had the right partners, the right solutions, we listened to the customers, and look what we made happen. But it obviously doesn't happen without you. So I'm just going to close with saying we do have a table in the other room, booth number 9. So if you want to come check out, we just brought a tiny sampling of what we have to offer, and we can tell you about other trade shows where we'll have more. Usually our marquee event is NRF, so we can share with you more about what we're doing there and some of the innovation we're bringing to bear. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Q&A. Sure,
How
gentlemen.
is this PODS device different from the sled that you can attach to an iPod device, or beyond the fact that it integrates with iOS?
Yeah, so the core payment module is the same, and that's really something that we try and do to help protect the investment on the merchant side, right? So one of the issues that exists when you take consumer electronics and you MPOSify them, if that's now a word, is that consumer electronics tend to change faster than merchants may want to change their investment in security. So you're absolutely right. This is based on our existing, the solution we announced in January, our 355 solution. It's just in this case paired with a different device, different integration, but the fundamentals of it, meaning it's a standalone module that can be used standalone and does have the future-proofing built in, understand.
Quick follow-up question, if I can then.
Sure.
Is the software interface then essentially the same?
So the question is the software interface the same? So the interface into our payment module is the same. Obviously, the software that sits on the host device, in this case the Alva mobile device, is different depending on the platform you're talking about, Android, Windows, whatever it might be. Good question.
Yeah.
Eric, in terms of integration, is that something that acts as a standalone compared, if a merchant already has a POS deployed, does that act as a standalone, or do you have a gateway connection that merges those mobile devices with, let's say, existing stationary POS?
Yeah, fair question. So that's Tony, by the way. He invented NFC. I learned earlier during the Google. Was it the internet?
No, that's Al Gore.
Oh, that's Al Gore. I'm sorry. So the integration really depends on the kind of solution the retailer wants to roll out. But it does. What I think is important there is it does. The POS functionality, what is typically in a legacy model covered by a cash register, now winds up, partially in the handheld device and partially in the back end. So it is replaced. It's not like this connects to a traditional cash register. It directly to the back end. Exactly.
Right, so it's not tethered, it doesn't rely on a fixed point of sale to operate.
Exactly.
I would also add, we didn't talk about, from a connectivity standpoint, it does both Wi-Fi and you have an option if you would like to add a SIM card, if the retailer felt like cellular was something they needed. I know that Alva Mobile has certified with a few carriers in the U.S.
Thanks, Tony.
Sure.
Does this go through a proprietary gateway?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think actually he asked something similar and it didn't answer it. So It can, if there was value to do that, but typically in a large retail scenario, would tie into whatever the existing switching and back-end equipment is, so it does not have to go through a gateway, but it certainly could, where that made sense. Verifone gateway included.
So that, because it's an Intel and Verifone partnership, and there's a good point, customization is wonderful. Is there ability to have the different interoperability and device connectivity methodologies like NFC, Bluetooth, OE, and Wi-Fi, customized for the solution set if the merchant wants some? Because I'm really curious, you can talk about that, the customization side of this equation is so compelling, awesome as far as, is that an opportunity? Maybe not with this model, but say the next evolution.
Yeah, so it's really, and feel free to comment as well, of course, but you have a lot of connectivity options, including everything you just mentioned. I wouldn't include BLE as a connectivity choice, but Wi-Fi, traditional Bluetooth, cellular, as Michelle just mentioned, so lots of choices in that regard. So it's very capable as far as the choice of connectivity. And then to the earlier question, there's lots of choices as to what you tie into. You can go direct to processor, because we have this model called SCA where we take transactions direct to processor, so you don't have to touch them as a merchant. That's one model. The other model is more traditional gateway play, or it could be directly into the existing merchant's backend infrastructure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, we do have Piotr from AVA here, and he can answer questions at the booth, but one of the models of go-to-market is just through distribution. So essentially, you can look at customizing. The model we have here does have barcode reader, but again, if you decide you didn't want that, you can turn on and off some of these options. The other thing is AVA did design the host compute tablet is very flexible. So you may actually notice that it actually has a smart back connector, and that enables you could, at some point say, I don't want this for payment, I want to instead do inventory management with it. You could attach a inventory management accessory. We've seen Partech Solutions go to market with it as a food safety device. And so that's the beauty, is these OEMs don't have to reinvent the tablet half of the equation. They really focus on where their IP is kind of world class.
Which retailers can we go to see who has it so far? Can you tell us that yet?
So we just announced a solution this morning, so unless our sales team is excessively fast. So we announced it this morning. I think we start shipping this here in the next few months. So I don't have a retailer announcement to announce publicly here today.
But we do have a few that are piloting already. They're just not publicly talking about it yet. Yeah. All right, any other? If not, we'll let you go into the, no, do we have another panel?
One more panel.
One more panel. Stay with us. It's a good one. Bringing the best for last. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.